Thank you. In 1925, kind of bad when people start back in 1925, but I'm going to do it. In 1925, the State Convention of the American Legion in South Dakota passed a resolution that asked the National American Legion to inaugurate and conduct baseball leagues and tournaments for local championships, and that those champions be given the opportunity to compete at state, sectional, and regional tournaments leading up to a Junior World Series championship baseball series. By 1926, there were 15 states sponsoring American Legion baseball leagues, and the first national tournament was held. 2 years later, Bristol's Station Prairie Post No. 2 sponsored a team from St. Anne's Grammar School in the Connecticut American Legion Baseball League, and the rest is history. Over the past 84 years, Bristol has had a continuous representation in American Legion baseball competition and has established a program recognized for excellence not only in Connecticut, but throughout the region and the nation. The National American Legion baseball program has evolved over the years to now include nearly 5,000 teams competing in 8 regional tournaments. In Connecticut, the program has grown from local leagues to county and sectional championships, and since 1962 has been divided into the current zone alignment, which leads up to the double elimination tournament. Bristol won several Harford County championships in the early years, but the program first made its mark at the state level in 1949, when we won the first of 4 consecutive state championships. 14 senior and 1 junior state crown, 4 regional titles, 32 zone champions in 50 years, has set a mark that no one in the state will probably ever be able to match. The success of the Bristol American Legion baseball program is a tribute to the many people who have been involved in the program since 1928. Standing first and foremost in contributing to that long strain of success are the players who have worn the Bristol uniform over the past 84 years. Without a steady stream of talented and dedicated baseball players, none of what the Bristol American Legion baseball program has accomplished would have been possible. Many of those players, as you saw, stand as members of the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame, including some who are being inducted tonight. More than 1,000 players have been a part of the Bristol program over the years, and to begin names runs the risk of slighting someone, so I will not mention any players by name, but extend a general thank you on behalf of the Bristol American Legion Baseball Committee to all who have worn the Bristol uniform over the years. I'd also like to offer thanks to the feeder programs, the Little Leagues, the Park Department's Pony Leagues, the high school programs, for their roles in developing the high-quality baseball talent that has made Bristol unique in our state, and for their role in making playing for Bristol American Legion the pinnacle of the baseball experience in our community. I'd also like to offer thanks to the parents who've given up their summers, sacrificed vacations, served as chauffeurs and caterers, and allowed their sons to give over their lives to American Legion baseball for 10 weeks every summer. While I'm not mentioning the players by name, I do think it's important to recognize the coaches who have dedicated their lives to the success of this program. Although we don't know the names of all of the early coaches, as with many things in Bristol in the first half of the last century, the name of Monahan, young and old, has played a role, as well as Jocko Yard. But the man who really introduced the golden age of American Legion baseball came on the scene in 1962. Hall of Famer Jim Bates, probably more than any other coach, made Bristol American Legion baseball into a community event. 3 state championships in the 1960s, crowds of 1,000 people or more each night at Muzzy Field, radio broadcasts of all the games, busloads of people making the trips to the regionals in Manchester, New Hampshire, and hundreds more filling the parking lot outside the American Legion Hall to hear the broadcast because WBIS had to go off the air at sunset back in those days. All of this came about under legendary Coach Bates. It was an era highlighted by a state championship game of 1971 when over 3,000 people crammed Muzzy Field to see Bristol duel Naugatuck, then the preeminent power in state high school baseball, for the championship. In 1974, George Sinnott came from St. Paul High School to take the program to the next level with the first trip to the World Series. A whirlwind 3-day cross-country trip to Roseburg, Oregon, gave many players and parents their first ever airplane ride and introduced Bristol to the National Legion organization. We saw Coach Tom Burns and his assistant Hal Kilby win back-to-back state championships. And in 1984 came the second World Series in the most improbable location, New Orleans, where we rode on prison buses and got lost on Bourbon Street. In the 90s, another Hall of Famer took over the program and brought Bristol 2 more state titles. Jim Ziogas won in his first year in 1994, barely missing a trip to the series. And then in 1997, Bristol won it all and went on to Rapid City, South Dakota. A visit to Mount Rushmore and Bristol's first ever World Series win highlighted that memorable season. Mike Rose's game-saving catch in the ninth inning that preserved Bristol's 3-2 win over Tulsa, Oklahoma in that series is still listed in the American Legion's National Record Book as one of the top plays in World Series history. Bristol's run of Hall of Fame coaches continued in the first decade of this century, when Spec Monaco brought Bristol 2 more state titles and another World Series trip. The 2004 team missed the World Series by a whisker, losing to a team from Portland, Maine that went on to become the only New England team to win a Legion World Series in the modern era, and whose roster included 2 players who toiled in the major leagues in 2012. In 2008, Bristol completed its most improbable run of all. After failing to win the zone title and missing out in the state tournament, Bristol rolled through the regional as host and went on to the series in Shelby, North Carolina. And finally, in 2011, Bristol added a junior Legion team, and Coach Jerry LaPenta took that team all the way to the state championship in his first year at the helm. While the players and coaches are the visible part of the American Legion program, there are many more who have toiled behind the scenes to make the program the success that it has been. The Legion Baseball Committee meets throughout the year to make decisions about the direction of the program and to engage in the constant fundraising that's needed to provide the thousands of dollars it takes to run this program each year. These are the guys that are selling and collecting tickets, hawking 50-50 raffles, chasing down the foul balls, making sure that teams are fed and provided for during games at Muzzy Field. The constant work and support of these men behind the scenes is one of the things that makes Bristol's program stand out among all state Legion baseball programs. No other program has this kind of dedicated support, and a number of them are here tonight. I see Clancy Murdoch, Dave Doobie, Dave Blandino, current coach Dave Nacera, among others who are with us tonight. And finally, none of this would be possible without the true dedication to American Legion baseball demonstrated by 3 men whose combined years of service to the Bristol Legion program totals more than 150 years. Paul LaFleur has been part of the program for over 40 years. He's the voice of Muzzy Field at Legion games, the statistician, the scheduler, the money raiser, the travel agent, and for the past 8 years, the general manager of the Bristol American Legion team. Doc Gilhooly was a legend among Legion baseball fans across Connecticut and beyond. He dedicated 57 years to the Legion program, 50 of them as manager of the Bristol team. He's the Connie Mack of Legion baseball, the last man to serve in official capacity in the dugout at a national event while wearing civilian clothing, thanks to Coach Ziogas. Doc and his wife Joan were the glue that held the program together for more than 2/3 of its existence. And finally, recognized another Hall of Famer whose life has revolved around the Legion baseball program. Fran Mullins has been associated with the Bristol and state programs for 62 years as manager, state director, zone chairman, site director at countless state tournament games at Muzzy Field, and as tournament chairman for each of the 9 regional tournaments hosted by Bristol. He's also the man who hired Doc Gilhooly to replace him as the Bristol manager. Truly Mr. Legion baseball, not just in Bristol, but across the state of Connecticut. For 84 years, the one constant in this program has been the support of Bristol's Seichapre Post number 2. Commander Chuck Wooden is here tonight to represent a long line of commanders who have ensured that the Bristol name remains in the forefront of the American Legion baseball. So on behalf of the baseball committee of Bristol Post 2, Commander Wooden, the coaches, and especially the players who have made it all possible, I'd like to thank the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame for this honor and call upon Fran Mullins and Paul LaFleur to please come forward and receive the plaque on behalf of the baseball program at the American Legion.